What's up guys? Being pretty active in the non-LEGO community, I get to see when a lot of things come out, and about a month ago, these minifigures were announced. Unfortunately, the way that these things work is pretty hit or miss. Sometimes they'll be announced and not come out at all, and sometimes it'll take like a week. Pretty much whenever these pictures come out, it just means that they are in production. And a lot of people have been asking where to get these guys. There's a lot of different art troopers, and of course, the Galactic Marines are always a big hit. I mean, they're Galactic Marines. I would buy a full legion of them if I could. But knowing that it was going to be a little bit of time until I could actually purchase them, I didn't really think anything of it and kinda just forgot about it. That is, until May 3rd, when I was browsing Instagram and suddenly I noticed that AV Figures was a little upset about something. See, he posted a very similar picture to this one with similar figures, in fact most of them are the same, where he was saying that he didn't know if he should be upset or flattered that some Chinese company completely knocked off their designs. And I get it, on one hand, he or his designers put a lot of work into these figures to make sure that they could sell top quality products through their own website, and it sucks to see that some company on the other side of the world took those designs and is now selling them for themselves. There's no way around that. Even though I do like non-LEGO and I don't mind non-LEGO figures, that is still really scummy and it does suck. But one thing that I do want to point out, and believe me when I say that this doesn't really make it any better, it does need to be said though, is that it's for different demographics. The overwhelming majority of the people who are actually going to buy these knockoff minifigures are in China or Southeast Asia proper. This is not and has never actually been directed towards an American audience at all. The majority of the people who will buy this will never know of AV Figures and will never be able to either. And even if they did, there's not really much they can do. For instance, it's a lot easier to buy from China from the US than it is to buy from the US from China, especially with how the Great Firewall internet system works. Again, that doesn't really justify them stealing it, but if I were AV Figures, the last thing that I would have done is bring any attention to this at all. And yes, I understand that's exactly what I'm doing in this video, and I'll explain why in a little bit. Now, I wouldn't actually say that a complete knockoff is the correct terminology here at all, because quite frankly, it's not. When you look at these two clones specifically, you can kind of see what he's talking about. The pattern of the colors is definitely taken exactly, but the actual clone bodies themselves are very different. So for these, I don't really think it's fair to say that someone stole the design when it's the design of a character. If all you're talking about is, well, they put the color in the same place I put the color, yeah, that's how these clones work. But then came the next two figures where it was extremely obvious that AV's designs were actually stolen. Both for Crosshair and for Bo-Katan, these are one-for-one direct copies of AV Figures designs. Absolutely nothing about either of these designs was changed in any way. In fact, AV Figures even pointed out that they had the exact positioning of the weathering copied. It's not 100% exact, but it's 99.99%, and with these ones, like I said, I have no doubt. Now, what's actually funny is that AV Figures addressed my earlier comment about how the clones don't really count as they're all based off the same reference. And I stand by that, by the way. Saying that these clones are direct knockoffs is kind of sketchy. However, he does equally point out that there are many different ways the same character can be artistically and originally recreated without copying other artists. When you're only really copying the placement of colors on a minifigure, even though everything else in the majority of it is different, I don't really think that counts as copying. In fact, if these two were released on their own, in their own bundle, I don't think anyone would have ever noticed that they were copied off of AV Figures. It's only by having them with Bo-Katan and Crosshair that anyone said anything. And he is absolutely right in saying that it is entirely possible to make your own version of a character that is not copying someone else's, even though it's all based off of the same character. And if he had just left it at that, then I would not be making this video. Instead, today would finally have been the Firestar Toys video. But the thing is that AV Figures had to add one more slide onto his story. And on that slide, he said, "I also know I'm not the only one who this has happened to. For years, they've knocked off Brick Arms, Clone Army Customs, LCM, and many other custom LEGO companies." And that part is great so far. I have no issue with that part. But then he continues by saying, "It's just such a shame to pour your heart and soul into your work, just to have some scumbag steal it and run off with a profit." And while that sounds absolutely correct, there's one huge glaring issue with this. AV Figures didn't create these characters. If these were original characters, I would 100% stand behind that and say screw the non-LEGO company, but they are not. But these are characters designed by the likes of Disney, Lucasfilm, Dave Filoni, and other designers that we don't know, not AV Figures. AV, just like Clone Army Customs, Big Kid Bricks, and any of them, technically have no legal right to sell for a profit these designs. If Disney or Lucasfilm or whatever wanted to, they 100% could shut all of this down. Now, I genuinely hope that never happens. They would suck a whole lot if that ever happened, because I like what all these companies, including AV Figures, do. But you cannot sit there and say that you don't like how someone else is running away with your profit when you are not paying the people who designed the things you are selling. Yes, this specific design was created by AV Figures, but they are not paying royalties or anything like that to Disney to use these characters or these designs for their own profit. And so that's the only reason I'm making this video. If he had not said anything, if Andrew had just let this go, I don't think anyone would have really cared. And I'm honestly not sure if anyone even cares anyway. But I highly doubt that AV is going to notice any decrease in sales or anything like that at all. So, as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you agree or disagree with what I said? I would really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed, as it helps the channel a lot. And if you want to support me further, you can always check me out on Instagram, Discord, and of course on Patreon, where you can join all of these wonderful people on screen, get shoutouts and extra entries into every monthly minifig giveaway. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.